but they got in the trade for KC, and they used it to select defensive tackle out of Duke, Mr. DeWayne Carter. Erik, what are your thoughts on this pick? Carter, his fit, who he is as a player, all that jazz.
No, I was excited to watch Carter, and he was a guy that I zoned in on at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
I thought that he was a fit. When you read his background and research his background, being a 3-year captain, the only one to ever do that at Duke, how he's very mature for his age, how he was, again, the leader for that defense and that team. There are so many things that when you're talking intangibles that just made sense for a fit in Buffalo. And that's exactly what I tweeted out when I started watching and doing research on him. So the thing that really stood out to me when I zoned in on him that first day at the Senior Bowl was his power. Because it's something like when you watch the film, and again, his film was a little limited when we're talking, this past season. And it was a season that if you look at, his prior year, his numbers were down a little bit.
Yes.
But I think that, we'll talk about the context behind that, but I felt like I wanted to see what type of power or strength he had. And that first day, he was knocking dudes back, and he was playing right down the middle of guys, which you don't see a lot of him in the defensive scheme. And I'll show you what I mean by that, because he played a lot of the shade, whether it's the shade nose tackle or, that 3 technique on the outside shoulder of the guard. But I wanted to see what type of power he had. And boy, early on in those one-on-ones, he was knocking dudes back. He was playing on their side of the line of scrimmage. So that's one thing that stood out to me. And he is a guy that if you go back and watch that first day recap from us too, he was a guy that I said stood out because not just because, again, of the intangible, but seeing it in person. That's what's so much fun about the Senior Bowl, seeing these guys in person. And I'm sure that the Bills, when they saw him in person at the Senior Bowl and their scouts, watching him in games, you saw that physicality with him and that hustle, as we're going to talk about in the film room.
Absolutely. And that Senior Bowl piece was huge for me with him because my first time really seeing him aside from broadcast was the Senior Bowl. And then I went and watched the tape, and, on tape, there's times where he gets displaced a little too often horizontally or vertically against double teams, especially, but even times with some one-on-one blocks. And then I thought back to what he was at the Senior Bowl, which was not only knocking back guys, but he was like holding his ground on almost every rep, an individual and team. Like I remember the first time I looked at him, I was watching receivers on the other side. You nudged me and you were like, yo, look at Carter. Like, look how flat like his back is, like that stance.
Oh, his stance. Yeah, you're right.
Flat back. And that's what kind of made me feel a little better about him, because I'm thinking of the timeline of things. Like all the film that we watched came before what he did at the Senior Bowl. And what he was doing at the Senior Bowl made me think, okay, like maybe he's fixed some of those aspects when it came to, getting displaced. But even within that, you just see the explosion, the penetration on tape. Like, yeah, that ability to knock back, the hand strength, the hand size, like the pop, the punch, the shock. I'd like him to shed a little quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, that's not really his game. You're right.
No, but which is annoying because the initial pop and knockback and the shock, you're like, yes, like, so just do that and then chuck a dude. He almost does it and hangs on a little too long, and it prevents him from having, more statistical impact or making a play at the line and not just getting an arm or a shoulder on a guy. But I think from a scheme fit mentally and from a play style standpoint, they really hit a good one here with Mr. DeWayne Carter.
Yeah, I like him. And if you look at some of these stats from 2023 to 2022, you can see some of the change there. And a lot of that had to do with the scheme and the change in defensive coordinators. So last year in pressures, he only had 25. That was 34th. And these rankings that are in parentheses are among the entire draft class at the D-line position. So all D-line positions in his draft class that are guys that are in, eligible for 2024 eligible draft. So he only had 1 sack last year. That was 64th. Not good. Pressure percentage, 8.2%. That was 42nd. But this is what stood out to me this year, especially going back to, again, the limited film from 2022. The time to pressure was 2.3 seconds, and that was 8th overall among all defensive linemen, which, man, if you're talking about fit, like that's what the Bills do. They're attacking, they're penetrating, playing up the field. They're playing fast, and you see that a bunch from Carter. And so if you compare last season to the year before, you can see his pressures in 2022. He had 52. He was 2nd overall among all D linemen, 5.5 sacks. That was 9th. A 13.1% pressure percentage, which was 5th. And then time to pressure kind of slowed down a little bit. It was 2.5 seconds. That was 36. But overall, you see a guy that can play fast, that has some versatility. We saw a little more nose tackle from him at the Senior Bowl than
Hmm.
I had expected.
Hmm.
Last year's scheme at Duke, he kicked out the edge a bunch
Yes.
as well, and actually did a pretty good job at
Yeah.
compressing the pocket. I was
Hmm.
surprised how much versatility he had, but overall, if you're talking off the field and on the field, attacking, penetrating style, I think he's going to be very good on those stunts in games, whether you're talking run stunts and twists or pass rush stunts. I think he's got some really nice lateral agility when it comes to that. So he should be a really nice rotational piece for the Bills D line, a D line that they rotate a bunch.
That's very well said. Yeah, watching him play nose as much as he did at the Senior Bowl, I was wondering, like, I kind of figured based on his size, I was like, okay, he's trying to show more that he can do this because that's not really who he is on tape. And then, yeah, watching the tape and he's doing some nose, he's doing some three tech. Yeah, he's lining up at edge, like in 3-man alignments, like a traditional, like 5 tech or even wider. And he's compressing and going through tackles. And he really hits, again, just with how he plays 100 miles an hour 100% of the time, like nonstop motor, nonstop hustle. You see it on almost every single play. Like he is that prototypical defensive tackle who is, somebody runs a tunnel screen or a smoke screen and he's
Mm,
chasing it, 15 yards
mhm,
downfield and
mhm.
making that tackle. And when you add it up with some of the moves, like he'll pull out a spin move from time to time, and he has the ability to get into the backfield. He's got a beautiful one against, North Carolina. And, watching him move again, that upfield, that attack minded nature that he plays with, I think it pairs well as that rotational 3 tech behind Ed Oliver. Like give Ed Oliver a blow, rotate in, and just let this dude go and hunt. And one last piece to go into those 2022 stats. There were 195 qualifying defensive tackles in 2022. He was tied for 11th out of all of them in pass rush productivity. Like, so if you're just looking at pure, like, dude who can hunt, I know the
Mhm.
numbers, like we talked about, don't reflect it holistically in 2023. That's where his, bread is buttered. You're going to watch him penetrate on these known passing downs and situations. And even with run stuff, like you want him getting in gaps, making plays, getting upfield. You'll see the physicality and violence and pop from snap to snap with him.
All right, and we had a question in if we could kind of profile his alignments and stuff like that. So we have a general outlook from PFF here,
Oh, gotcha.
but they don't tell you like, hey, he's a 1 tech, he's a 3 tech, but
Hate
you
that
can
they
see
don't do that. For so much
no,
defense they
I
have, it's
know.
annoying they don't do that.
So D defensive left tackle, D right tackle, that's usually again your 3 technique type position. So you
Mhm,
can see a lot of those snaps there, but you can see he was at left end 31 times last year. Leo, which is usually it's a defensive end, but a little wider, so
mhm,
more of an outside linebacker type. So
yeah.
46 snaps there. You see left outside linebacker 14. So he's got a bunch of different alignments sprinkled in there, and that's just a testament to his athleticism, really. And again, the intelligence, that football intelligence, and that's something that
Mhm.
he talked about when I interviewed him down at the Senior Bowl. So he's got a lot of good traits that we're going to take a look at here in film. So let's get into some of the film here. We got a few clips. I want to say like 6 or 7 that I want to get to before we
Also,
get
real
running
quick, just
the video here.
another, we
Yeah.
go to the Senior Bowl every year, just another testament for those who follow us and follow this brand when we go down there. Cole Bishop was a Senior Bowl guy. DeWayne Carter was a Senior Bowl guy. Osiris Torrance was a Senior Bowl guy.
Hmm.
Like Josh Allen was a Senior Bowl guy. We continue to
Hmm.
see them grab guys in general from the Senior Bowl, but especially those day one and day two guys, they gravitate towards that Senior Bowl a bit. So if you needed another oomph to pay attention to the Senior Bowl or take a look at not just what we produce, but the event in general, it means a lot for this staff.
Yeah, here's we're gonna start with some run plays here. Watch how he strings this play out as a 3 technique. Ball gets outside of him, and that's Benson. That's a fast running
Real
back
quick, Eric,
used
it's
to him.
not
It's
sharing.
not playing? All right, hold on a
No,
second.
it's playing. I see it on the there you go.
Okay, there it is.
It was doing this to me
Here,
last night. I'm telling you, there's like a
that's
ghost in
weird.
the machine.
All right, so right here, 3 technique, outside shoulder of the guard. Watch the pitch out to Benson and watch him work down the line of scrimmage and force that cutback. That's incredibly
Mhm.
huge when you're talking containing a play, containing a speed running back like Benson, and that they are able to minimize that play. And that's Carter at work right there. He initially gets reached, then you see him work across the face and laterally down the line of scrimmage, beautifully stringing that play down and really containing it.
Yeah, he never stops working on any rep. And, for a dude who saw as many snaps as he did, I'm surprised he didn't wear down more like towards the end of games, like than you would think. Like you see him get, tired from time to time, but he's just nonstop hustling. He ends up on the ground here, but he makes this play. Like, he cuts off Benson. He makes Benson have to cut this back right to his help and right to his support.
Muddy. Yep.
Yes. And that's exactly it. Gum up the works, make things muddy, do like the proverbial dirty work. Maybe you're not getting those stats and you're not getting the TFLs and the tackles, but when you do things that allow others to succeed, especially with when all guys are healthy, the Bills' second level is Bernard and Milano and Taron Johnson. You want these guys shooting and playing free and clean, and you have a dude up front that's willing to gum up the works and take dudes out to clear gaps and runways for those dudes at the second level to make plays if he's not making it himself.
Like you talked about earlier, I'm not a big fan of him at the point of attack as a stack and shedder if the ball's coming
Yeah,
at him. But in those
absolutely.
type of perimeter runs, they're trying to get outside. He's got that agility and
Mhm.
ability to track the ball down the line of scrimmage, runs away from him, kind of like you see here. He does a great job of just again working through some of that traffic. Look how he splits this combination block,
Mhm.
and he's very good at doing that. And this is important, especially if you're talking, three tech. Think about Ed Oliver and how many times he is shot the back door and maybe even just jumped the snap really well and got ahead of the block. But watch how he slithers through this combination block by the right guard and right tackle, and he's able to somehow track it. I don't know how, but he does it.
Yeah.
He tracks it, and he's right there as the linebacker, the second level defender whiffs. He's able to play over the top and still make the tackle.
Yeah, and this one's nice too. He doesn't get displaced too much by the initial double team. He's able to kind of stay down the line. And then when that double team pulls off to climb to the backer at the second level, he's in that good position. He's still working. 74 pulls off, like you highlighted, to pick up the linebacker. And there's Carter working through that inside shoulder, continuing to grind, continuing to push, has that half man relationship, pushes through the shoulder and kind of gets that penetration. Again, you nailed it. Like, I'm very confident in him kind of cutting off zone runs and pieces. I get a little more worried when it's direct right at him,
Mhm.
type of runs, but you really see him shine when it comes to like the lateral pieces. Ooh, a little cross chop here.
Yeah, and that's one thing I did like with him. He's got kind of reminds me of what was the guy's name from TCU a few years ago that we wore number 92. I'm gonna forget
Ooh,
his
I
name,
don't
but
know.
you see him get upfield and cross chop, and I saw some of that hand usage and quick hands a bunch. And again, you tick the box. Cool. I want to see power. Can you do speed to power? And so I did see that at the Senior Bowl. So I like that he has this in the arsenal, that cross chop on that stunt. And you see them get pressure on Drake May there, and he's forced to throw that incomplete. These are the type of things that when he comes in, he's gonna have to be able to do that. He's got to be able to affect the quarterback. That's the number one priority when it comes to D line and the Bills defense.
Yeah, seeing kind of what he had in the arsenal on tape made me feel a little better, busting out a spin a couple times, seeing that cross chop, seeing as many moves as he can. So it's not just, okay, it's not just penetration. It's not just, some shock and then try and get by a guy. Like, seeing him be able to pull some of this a little bit. And I think this one kind of gives you an inkling too, like you mentioned, like what he can do on some of those games and some stunts up front, right? Like some of what he's able to do from a movement perspective and take guys out and clear space or get through himself. Again, it just fits with what this Bills defense does in that role in terms of what they look for up front.
Especially not wanting to blitz a lot. You see a four-man
Yeah.
rush here, but they're running, two different games here. So you see him, his job is get upfield. You have the looper. And they're doing the same thing on the other side. They're running a game here, and that's exactly what happens. This looper flushes May out to the right, and then you have pressure from that interior defensive looper on the outside. That's what the Bills love to do. Run
Mhm.
stunts, create pressure without having to blitz. It's something that, Duke did a bunch of in run and pass situations. And sometimes, as you talked about earlier, the run situations, he would kind of run himself out of a gap. But there
Mhm.
were times where that was called and they just called a perfectly like
Mm.
run up the middle against it.
Yeah,
But
fair.
here's a play you were talking about, right?
I love this.
This
Yeah.
spin move inside. They have this guy point. They have this guy point and go at the center so that they can get one-on-one out here. And you can see, Carter take advantages with that spin move and attacking that A gap with that spin move.
This one's real pretty. I really wish he
I
brought
know.
May down. Like, I
No.
just wish he fitted. This would be one of the best reps of Eddie Bill that was drafted in this class if he just finished the rep. But again, kudos to Drake
Blacklock.
May.
Thank you, Charles. Yes, Blacklock. That was the defensive tackle from TCU. I
Oh,
loved him.
nice. Good
Yeah, I
call.
loved
Good
him.
call. Charles is crushing it tonight. Well
He is,
done.
man.
Yeah, I wish Carter finished this rep and got May down. But again, testament to May, who's got really good mobility in and out of the pocket. I think this also too kind of highlights a bit of, you know, Carter's really good at getting upfield, getting that penetration. Like, he's not the best change of direction or like in space dude, though he does like have the ability to kind of move and motor. But I mean, I'll take a dude who can still get penetration this quickly and get a dude off the spot. This is an instantaneous win. And it's set up a little bit by what he was doing earlier, like attacking more the outside shoulder of the guard. Now he gets that left guard who steps, throws both of those
Both
hands
hands.
inside.
Trouble.
Yep. Exactly. And Carter just catches him, throws that ice pick into the back a little bit, hooks him, and then gets through, just isn't able to finish completely. But this is a really, really strong rep in terms of the suddenness, the move, the win, and the precision.
Yeah, and here's another run play here. You see him again force that cutback and then make the tackle. He senses that so well on this zone run versus Louisville. And again, he's looking out ahead of him too. You got to understand, like you see him out here and he sees 16 kind of shorten that edge and force the cutback. And he's able to also, sense that cutback and make that tackle. Just good stuff from him, man. I like him,
Yeah.
as a run defender when the ball is going away from him, but he does have a good sense of things. But this is probably where he hangs his hat, right, Anthony? You talked about it. Screens, he recognizes them so fast, but more importantly, his hustle, man, his hustle on this play. Look at how he breaks through here, and the quarterback is setting up, a play down the field. He just stays with it. They set up the screen. He eventually makes a tackle down the field. Like, this is really good stuff at keeping his head in the play, tracking the ball down, and making the tackle short of the sticks.
Yeah, I feel like you almost see like one of these at least a game from him. Just
Agreed.
like just chasing it down in a variety of ways. Like, yeah, sometimes it's a tunnel screen or a smoke. This time it's a general kind of like more, let me dump this out to the running back here. But you see him adjust his angle. It's the hustle, it's the eyes, it's the reading and reacting live in the moment as he gets through going forward. And as Razor 82 says here, we need help on screens.
Yes.
Yeah, the Bills D would get gashed a bunch in screens this past year. So it's nice to see somebody who has the athleticism and the juice, but more importantly, the play recognition or the feel and understanding what is going on as he gets forward, flushes Travis, makes it a problem here, and then just completely engulfs Bell, the tight end there. And this is another really great example too on this play.
Yeah, this is again that screen type play where he senses it. He senses the soft pass sets from those offensive linemen, how they're peeling off, and he immediately tracks the ball. Look at the angle he's taking to the ball here, and he makes a play on this screen down the field. I agree with you, man. You see at least one of these a game, and with how often the Bills play those, deep zone coverages, those quarters type coverages, you have less guys underneath. You got to have recognition from those pass rushers, especially with how teams like to take the attacking style and use it against the Bills defense. That's why they run screens. That's why you see a lot of quick game and you see the batted passes from guys in the Bills defense. And DeWayne Carter's good at that. He's got 11 batted passes in his career. It's something the Bills really take serious and work on. And these type of plays, all the little things that you see from DeWayne Carter and this, these short clips really are going to translate into the Bills defense when you're talking next season.
I love that point. We've seen, I'll forever have like that regular season game against the Colts a couple years ago in my brain where they were just running like trap and wham and crunch nonstop and just taking advantage of the Bills like upfield penetration piece. And that's an example of how you can do it too, right? Like the quick game passes or those quick hitting runs that are trying to trap dudes, again, whether it's trap or wham, like you need to be able to recognize that or feel it. And Carter has that. He has that feel. He has the recognition. And we saw it on the previous play, and we see it again here on this one from Louisville, more of a tunnel screen as opposed to the one we saw previously.
They're blitzing on defense too. That's what's crazy about this.
They're trying to like get home and get upfield. This is attack as soon as you go. You see the stunts and the slants from that defensive line as you highlighted everybody going into their gaps and move. So they're at an even bigger disadvantage than they are naturally as if they were just trying to get upfield. But he slams on the brakes, feels and sees those linemen leaking out, sees the QB, and then also like the pursuit angle. It's one thing to recognize it. It's another to have the physical ability and or the angle to the ball. Like this is good. Granted, it's to the short side of the field and, you've got wider college hashes, so there's less ground to cover, but that's a really great play physically and mentally from Carter.
So I talked about, the 11 batted passes and how important that is to the Bills defense when, they like to play up the field and rush and again, get that pressure quickly. Screens and quick game are the counters. And so getting your hands up is a big thing, but here's that awareness and play on the ball again from Carter against your team, the
Oh,
Hurricanes,
yeah.
you're going to see that screen being set up to the running back to the bottom, and just watch him sense it and attack it in the backfield. And he makes a play on the ball, rips it away, helps rip it away right there from the running back. And now the ball's out. He's so smart from the shoulders up, man. His awareness is going to be great to have as that, again, second wave of pass rushers and defensive tackles in the Bills defense.
I remember this play, and I hate it now just as much as I did during the game. And these two stupid previous years for Miami when they just could not get their stuff together. Yeah, like you can see him feel the block, and he kind of sits and then recognizes what's happening. And like you said, just closes right down on the running back, and then makes a friggin' play on the ball. Again, the headiness, the recognition. That's what I really like from him. Like he's not just like I don't know, chicken with his head cut off type of upfield and penetration where he's going to get caught out and you're like, oh, like I know you're trying to get to the quarterback, but recognize what's going on. No, like he's got that upfield penetration, attack minded nature and play style, but he also has the intelligence and the recognition to go along with. And that's just a tremendous play. Like to not even go for the tackle, to get your hand right on the ball and then not only do that, but also rip it out and make a play for your defense. Absolutely tremendous, even though I still hate it.
I found that one today, and I'm like, oh, Anthony is not going to enjoy that.
I hadn't seen that on the all 22, and when you played it, I immediately you could see
had a conniption.
I went right back to it because it's just, I literally remember that. So yeah, well done.
So to kind of round out this film room, what are your thoughts on him? Starter, role player, depth. What's his role going into his rookie season?
I think like from a technical perspective, depth. Because he's going to be, I think, the backup 3 tech, but I expect him to be like the number 2, 3 tech behind Ed Oliver. I expect to see him in that rotation. I feel like we'll see a top 4 of Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, DeWayne Carter, and then Austin Johnson is my feeling as of right now for that interior 4, with Johnson being the backup 1, and Carter being the backup 3. And I like that. I think that's good, with the rotation. I expect to see him if all, if everyone stays healthy and things are regular, anywhere from like 45% of snaps and above based on what Phillips and the other rotational dudes did last year. And I think that's perfect for him. Let him hunt, get upfield, cause havoc in the backfield, spell Ed Oliver or Daquan in whatever situations that they need to, kind of keep those guys fresh for the long haul. But yeah, I expect him to be that role player this year and see a good chunk of snaps in this defense.
Yeah, if you're in the top 8 when you're talking like, the DNs and D tackles, you're going to be playing a good amount of reps. I don't expect that to change. They like having their defensive linemen fresh. It's really a cornerstone of this defense. And, with the style that they play that we talked about the entire episode, I think that you kind of have to be that way because guys are always pinning their ears back and playing fast and, physical. And so I think that that's probably why they like to roll those defensive linemen in ways.